The Dharma Discourses of Cardinal Master Chongsan. Part 2, Dharma Discourses. Chapter 7, Exhortations to Practice of the Way. One Cardinal Dharma Master Chongsan said, depending on the level of listeners' capacities, commonplace words can become a weighty Dharma discourse, or laboriously presented Dharma instructions can become commonplace words. Therefore, those who are listening to the Dharma must offer sincere faith and utmost respect to the speaker, and, with a mindset of absolute reverence, must listen earnestly lest even a single word be missed. Only then will that Dharma make a deep impression on their minds and be long remembered, bringing them real benefits through its application in actual situations. 2. The Master said, words that are exciting while one is listening to them, but leave nothing to hold on to afterward, are simply fine words, words that may seem unassuming at first, but prove marvelously rich the more one thinks back on them, are an excellent Dharma instruction. Words that are elaborate but have nothing of substance are convoluted words, words that are succinct but have rich meanings with clear ways of utilizing them are an excellent Dharma instruction. The wise are able to find Dharma talks in even the noisy exchanges and idle talk of the marketplace, hence, they gain understanding even from the unskilled speech of neophytes. But those who scrutinize even the words of distinguished spiritual mentors just to compare their cleverness to their own fail to obtain any real benefit. How could this not be a great loss? Those expounding the Dharma ought to reflect on their own knowledge and conduct when they speak, but the audience will derive benefit if they hone just to the teachings and put them into practice without being concerned about the preacher's conduct. 3. The Master said, a person whose vision has opened worships all things in the universe as Buddhas and hears constant Dharma instructions from them, this is a person of superior spiritual capacity. A sensible person who likes learning often seeks out spiritual mentors and enjoys listening to their fine instructions, this is a person is of average spiritual capacity. A foolish person lives his entire life without taking the measure of things and, even if he hears good Dharma talks, he does not know how to accept them as such and apply them accordingly, this is a person of inferior spiritual capacity. 4. The Master said, a deep-rooted tree will not be uprooted by the wind, water from a deep spring will not dry up during a drought. In human life, religious faith is the root and spiritual practice is the spring. A person who lives a life of deep faith will be firm and unbending amid all adverse or difficult conditions. One who lives a life of assiduous practice transcends all temptations and thus gains tranquility. 5. The Master said, the ancient Buddha Sakyamuni enjoyed a golden body, the status of a crown prince, the riches and honors of his entire future kingdom, a beautiful wife and consorts, the privileges of authority, and an elegant residence and cuisine, all of which were unmatched in this world. However, on perceiving that all these things were delusionary and could not be preserved forever, he left the palace in the middle of the night. After undergoing immeasurable austerities, he ultimately discovered the authentic treasure that is free from arising and ceasing and became the great spiritual guide of humans and divinities for all eternity. In all ages, he is a worthy model for seeking the way. 6. The Master said, of all the vows in this world, the 4 great vows are the greatest. First, even though there may be no limit to the number of sentient beings, we vow to deliver them all. In order to actualize that vow, we endlessly extinguish defilements, study Dharma teachings with utmost sincerity, and continuously cultivate the way of the Buddha throughout all eternity. By doing so, we will eventually accomplish the great vow of attaining Buddhahood and delivering all sentient beings. The difference between Buddhas and Bodhisattvas and ordinary sentient beings is like that between a majestic tree and a young sprout. Once it has matured, even a young sprout will become a tall tree, so too, even sentient beings, by continuously practicing, will become Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. Therefore, no matter how difficult the task, there is nothing that cannot be accomplished if one keeps trying, but if one does not try, nothing can be accomplished. If we steadily practice these 4 great vows with a firm realization that we and the Buddhas are non-dual, then there will be nothing that cannot be accomplished. 7. The Master said, whether our practice advances or regresses depends on whether or not there is a limit to our vow, whether or not we harbor self-conceit, and whether or not we maintain a close relationship with a teacher who is eminent in the Dharma. Hence, when we are engaged in practice, we must continuously advance by first establishing a great vow that has no bounds or limitations, without harboring the slightest self-conceit, and maintaining close relationships with our teachers and colleagues. Then, we shall never regress but will continuously advance throughout all eternity. 8. The Master said to Sin Che-un, reflect on whether you have firmly established the great vow and great faith that will enable you never to forsake this order throughout all eternity. Now that you have encountered an order like ours, you must vow to become enlightened to truth without fail and never to lose your Dharma affinities with the founding Master, and, by practicing diligently, live consistently a life of attaining Buddhahood and delivering sentient beings throughout infinite kalpas. 9. The Master said, I have now come to realize more profoundly that the founding Master's question, who is it who truly know me, is an extremely urgent saying. Only when you truly have faith in him would you consider even a single phrase of his to be as precious as gold or jade and put it into practice, and only a person who has the sincerity to put it into practice truly understands and has faith in the founding Master. 10. The Master said, the founding Master said, it is difficult to deliver a person who is either too foolish or too superficially clever, but if one had to choose, the foolish one is better than the clever one. A person should be truly clever and, through a single word of the Master, grasp his meaning to fully establish his faith, but if that is not possible, then, like a fool, one should proceed along a single path. A superficially clever person cannot establish a firmly rooted faith, and cannot easily be delivered. 11. The Master said, there are various depths to the faculty of faith. Without any core values of one's own and inveigled by various doctrines and other people's views and contentions, one will waver hither and thither and will come to ruin by acting as one pleases. This is a faculty of faith that is like blowing leaves. With faith established in the right Dharma, one will not be swayed by minor sensory conditions, and even though swayed by major sensory conditions, one still will not regress. This is a faculty of faith like a tree's roots. With profound faith, one will not be swayed at all, however adverse or difficult the sensory conditions, and will always be guided by conscience in one's conduct, thus not falling into transgression and suffering. This is a faculty of faith that is like Mount Tai. 12. The Master said, self-power and other power are inseparably related. Some people overemphasize other power and stubbornly insist on faith alone, others overemphasize self-power and insist that, since mind is the Buddha, there is no need for precepts or the principle of causality. Both positions are either excessive or deficient. As for faith in the Buddha, having faith in the human Buddha who attained enlightenment and practicing accordingly is other power, knowing the truth that our own minds are the Buddha and continuing to cultivate this Buddha that is none other than one's own mind is self-power. As for faith in the Dharma, to have faith in the Dharma that the Buddha illuminated from the realm of his enlightenment is other power, knowing the Dharma of using one's own mind and acting in accordance with it is self-power. As for faith in the Sangha, to have faith in the teachers of a religious order is other power, to discover one's own true conscience and to conduct oneself accordingly is self-power. In this way, through faith and practice that integrate self and other power, one will experience consummate success through their unity. 13. At the opening ceremony of a sun retreat, the Master gave this Dharma talk. There is a saying, only when one takes good care of the Buddha in one's own temple will others do the same. Thus, you must discover the Buddha within yourself and sincerely make Buddha offerings to it. A Buddha offering may be made either to oneself or to an object, but it is best if these two proceed in tandem. As to which is primary and which secondary, a Buddha offering made to oneself is fundamental. Engaging first in one's own mind practice is what is meant by learning the right formula for Buddha offerings. 14. A student asked, are recitation of the Buddha's name and seated meditation the only ways of practicing absorption? The Master said, if your mind is focused on one spot and is free from attachments no matter what you are doing, that can be a form of absorption practice. Praying can also be a way of absorption practice. In all matters, and in accordance with the characteristics of each situation, if with sound thought you hone to what you should and let go of what you should, you will attain the great power of absorption. The Master continued, seated meditation is a great path for absorption practice, and praying is a shortcut. If you gain one-pointedness of mind while performing your prayers, then you will gain both the Dharmakaya Buddha's awesome power and the power that derives from absorption. 15. The Master said, it is all right to offer a prayer of supplication for a specific aspiration. However, if you sincerely offer prayers on behalf of your own practice, then before you know it your old habituations will melt away and your practice will gradually advance so that everything will turn out just as you wish. 16. The Master said, as I always say, even when you offer mental affirmation at dawn and dusk, do not do it just for yourself, but remember to do it also for the world and the order. The merit of such prayer will be much greater. 17. The Master said, this is how I offer my daily mental affirmation, O Dharmakaya Buddha, O Fourfold Grace. Please bestow upon all us sentient beings the illumination and strength that derives from great loving-kindness and great compassion. Help us to dedicate ourselves immediately to the way and its power and take refuge in the right Dharma. May we transform our foolish mind into a mind that is wise, our feisty and evil mind into one that is loving and compassionate, our deceitful and deluded mind into one that is righteous and authentic, our jealous and resentful mind into one that is loving and grateful, our greedy and covetous mind into one that has integrity and impartiality, and our disputatious and malevolent mind into one that is harmonious and protective. The fundamental nature of transgressive karma will thus become purified, the gate to the path of wisdom and merit will open, and the political situation throughout the world will improve daily, so that the good fortunes of this nation will become limitless and world peace will be everlasting. May the road ahead for all people be blessed with illumination, concord, and happiness, so that we may live forever in the Buddha's sacred land. This I pray for wholeheartedly. 18. The Master continued, this is an example of mental affirmation that may be used during all Dharma meetings, O Dharmakaya Buddha, O Fourfold Grace. Please bestow upon us who have gathered here for our regular Dharma meeting extraordinary illumination and power, so that our faculty of faith becomes deeper and the gate to the path of wisdom and merit opens forever. Let our three great powers of cultivation, inquiry, and choice advance each day, so that we may leave behind the realm of sentient beings to ascend the Bodhisattva path, and enter the realm of the Buddhas by cultivating the Bodhisattva path. In our practice and enterprises, please eliminate all obstructions of Mara, and enable us to move freely in all directions of east, west, south, and north, so that wherever we go we may always benefit the public and also receive their welcome and protection. Let both our speech and action be sincere, so that regardless of the situation we will never leave behind truth and will also receive truth's implicit support and beneficence. Let there be harmony and unity among our fellow adherents, so that the dignity of our order may be recognized throughout the worlds of the 10 directions and the merit of our teachings may deliver all sentient beings everywhere. This I pray for wholeheartedly. 19. The Master said to the students praying at the One Buddhist Seminary, breaking a promise even to an individual will involve punishment for deceiving that person's mind. You've consecrated a great vow before the divine spirits of heaven and earth to deliver sentient beings and heal the world. Such a vow is indeed grave and enormous. You will not be able to avoid severe punishment if you break it halfway through. Bear this deeply in mind. 20. The Master said, because the minds of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas were consistent from beginning to end, they were able to become Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. But the minds of ordinary persons waver and regress from their initial aspirations in response to sensory conditions, and thus they fail to succeed. Hence, keep your initial and subsequent aspirations consistent by always maintaining a mind that takes pleasure in the way and has concern for the public. 21. The Master said, we practitioners face several barriers along the road from the realm of sentient beings to the world of the Buddhas. First is when our knowledge and perspective gradually begin to take shape. Second is when our reputation begins to grow. Third is when we begin to be accorded greater respect. Fourth is when we begin to accrue material possessions. Fifth is when we begin to enjoy certain prerogatives. By foreseeing these barriers and not allowing ourselves to be obstructed by them, we will accomplish great practice. 22. The Master said, those of inferior spiritual capacities fail to progress due to being entangled in desires for food, sex, wealth, and so forth. Those of average spiritual capacities fail to progress due to being trapped in the desires for fame and reputation. Those whose spiritual capacities are somewhat more advanced fail to progress far due to being trapped in appearances. Once you are detached from the 5 desires and the 4 signs, you will be of advanced spiritual capacity. 23. The Master said, if you wish to become a celebrated calligrapher, you must first master the brush strokes of a distinguished calligrapher and then develop your own calligraphic powers. In the same way, if you wish to attain Buddhahood, you must first model yourself wholeheartedly on the mind Dharma of the Buddhas and nurture well the Buddha mind every hour of every day. By taking the founding Master's mind Dharma as our great model and steadily putting it into practice according to the teachings of the principal book of One Buddhism, we must become disciples who have received the complete transmission of the founding Master's Dharma lineage. 24. The Master said, just as children take after their parents, disciples of the Buddha ought to take after him. If you come to resemble the Dharmakaya, Samagakaya, and Nirmakaya by always taking after the Buddha in all things, you will have reached the realm of the Tathagatas. 25. Hearing that Songhai Anung was studying the prospect of an unlimited power source, the Master said, machines may need unlimited power, but our cultivation of the way also needs unlimited power. The unlimited power of cultivating the way is belief and dedication. They are the fundamental power source that turns ordinary people into sages. 26. The Master said, if perverse thoughts take root in your mind, then, by meditating on the ill one song, endeavor to recover your original nature, which is void, round, and right. By silently reflecting on the founding Master's saintly visage, endeavor to take after his way of using the mind, which is fair, just, and compassionate. By arousing your self-awareness as a disciple of the Buddha and a public-spirited person, endeavor to eliminate perverse thoughts. In that case, the perverse mind will be readily transformed into the right mind. 27. On New Year's morning, the Master gave a Dharma talk. The path to attaining Buddhahood and becoming a sage is not somewhere far away, rather, it is nearby, in the cultivation of our own minds. By always recognizing that rectifying our minds is both our vocation and our enjoyment, in the new year let us all work together with renewed resolve to attain Buddhahood. He continued, the newness of the new year lies not in the day but in our minds, so to reinforce with renewed resolve our dedication to both our practice and our enterprises is the true meaning of greeting a new year. Accordingly, every day is a new day and a new year, if you check your mind anew, otherwise, even when the new year comes, you won't be able to greet a truly new year. 28. At a New Year's Day ceremony, the Master said, by becoming new persons with the coming of the new year, we ought to be able to build a new nation and a new world with our own strengths and rejoice together in a new paradise of ill-one. The path to becoming a new person lies in offering ever new meritorious contributions to the world by cultivating good habits every day with renewed resolve, by taking care of antiquated practices and enterprises, and in recovering our self-nature that is originally complete by continuing to cultivate our original nature. 29. The Master said, if we apply ourselves to our practice and enterprises with renewed resolve, then our whole life will be renewed, our order will be renewed, and our world will be renewed. The basis for this renewed resolve lies in developing a great public spirit on the foundation of a great thoroughgoing faith, and in applying great loving kindness and compassion. 30. In Chongsan, the Master wrote the 9 articles of reflection for his students as a commentary on the essential dharmas of daily practice. In accordance with the mind ground that is free from disturbance, the numinous elixir will gradually grow, and you will be endowed with the capacity of a great person. In accordance with the mind ground that is free from delusion, the brightness of wisdom will gradually appear, and you will attain the intelligence of a great person. In accordance with the mind ground that is free from wrongdoing, the power of choosing the right will become ever greater, and you will be endowed with the blessings and merit of a great person. In accordance with the functioning of belief, zeal, questioning, and dedication, Your disbelief, greed, laziness, and foolishness will be extinguished, and you will experience success in the great way. As you turn a life of resentment into a life of gratitude, enmity from your past lives will gradually vanish, and at the same time your blessings and merit will increase. As you turn a life of dependency into a life of self-reliance, the accumulated debts from your past lives will gradually be repaid, and at the same time your blessings and rewards will also accumulate. As you turn from a person who is reluctant to learn into one with a readiness to learn well, and from a person with a reluctance to teach into one with a readiness to teach well, your knowledge will be plentiful throughout all eternity. As you turn from a person who lacks public spirit into one with an eagerness for the public's welfare, your authority and virtue will become infinite throughout all eternity. 31 The Master said, just as frost and snow reveal the true constancy of pine and bamboo, so too the true value of practitioners is revealed through favorable or adverse conditions. It is by confronting the difficult barriers facing either individuals or the order that the value of faith and the value of practice are more fully revealed. A nation trains soldiers so that they may be mustered in emergency situations. A sage engages in mind practice so that he may utilize that capability of mind when facing sensory conditions. 32 The Master said, if you apply belief, zeal, questioning, and dedication to mind practice, you will succeed in the practice of the threefold study. If you apply them to scholarship, farming, artisanship, and commerce, you will succeed in your occupation. 33 The Master said to a student, it is said that to attain great wisdom, one must enter into great absorption. However, at Wolmyong Hermitage, when I was cultivating the practice of absorption only in a state of no mind, the founding master strongly cautioned me that I was becoming ignorant of human affairs. You will achieve a well-rounded practice only by cultivating the practices of both letting go and taking hold of the mind, so that you are free to let go and take hold as easily as inhaling and exhaling. 34 The Master said, in practice, it is most important to have a sense of the general principles. In reading scriptures, too, if you read them inattentively without having a sense of the general principles, then even though you read several hundred volumes you will gain nothing from it, as if the books and yourself had nothing to do with each other. Also, practice does not only involve reading or studying texts. If you just keep a sense of the general principles, whether you are in action or rest, all of you will reap the true fruition of practice. 35 The Master said to the students, all things accrue to those who are earnestly seeking. The past Buddha Sakyamuni achieved the way upon seeing the morning star not because that star had any special significance, rather, he finally awakened because his mind sought earnestly to resolve all his questions about human beings' birth, old age, sickness, and death, which grew and grew until they peaked. Our founding master, too, from the age of 7 SE onward, observed the natural phenomena of the universe, and the earnest sincerity to seek the way sprouted in his mind. This aspiration grew and grew until it finally led to his attaining great enlightenment. Therefore, in listening to Dharma discourses, there is a vast difference between listening attentively and inattentively, just as seeing and hearing all human affairs and universal principles with an inquiring mind is different than seeing and hearing them heedlessly. If you study any doctrine while always bearing in mind the principal book of one Buddhism, those doctrines will become ever more lucid, but if you only listen to doctrines without doing this, they will only disturb your thoughts. Therefore, the founding master said that we should clarify our minds by engaging in seated meditation during the early morning and examining universal principles through scriptural study during the day. 36 The Master said, there are 3 ways of reading sutras. First is to read the written records of the saints and sages of old in order to illuminate through them your own knowledge and vision. Second is to observe everyone's wholesome and unwholesome deeds and make those your own teachers and reflecting mirrors. Third is to discover the instruction of truth in each and every one of the events and things you encounter. A sagacious person reads sutras in all 3 of these ways, so that every step and everything is a great sacred scripture. 37 In the preface to his history of the founding of the Society for the Study of the Buddha Dharma, as the order was officially named during the Japanese colonial period, the master wrote, it is said that history is a mirror on the world, because, regardless of the era, the rise and fall and prosperity and degeneration of all things are reflected in history. However, a person who is studying history cannot be said to have a complete understanding of its true face simply by learning and remembering all the names of places and persons, as well as the chronologies, based merely on what is written. Rather, only by comprehending well the general trend of the time, the mental attitude of the chief actors, and the system and general thrust of the laws and institutions can one see the true face of history. Only then will history become a mirror that reflects everything both internal and external. Hence, we must inquire into what kind of mission has been given to our order, what the characteristics of the age are, how great a sage the founding master was, what kind of Dharma he taught, what the process involved in founding the order was, and what its ultimate prospects are. 38 The Master said, "Do you spend your time holding a hwaju?" In examining the hwaju, it is appropriate to practice in the sequence of theoretical sun, Tathagata sun, and patriarchal sun. However, do not practice by examining just the hwaju all day long, as in meditation halls of the past. Instead, keep your hwaju always in mind, and examine it for a moment whenever your mind is clear and quiet. Then, just as a chick develops after a mother hen has brooded over her egg for a long, long time, your mind's wisdom gate will open. 39 The Master said, in practicing inquiry into human affairs and universal principles, there are three essentials. First is to see rightly, second is to understand rightly, and third is to awaken rightly. Of these three, right awakening is the ultimate. The true realm of right awakening is as follows. Internally, you cannot discard it though you may try, you cannot forget it though you may try, and you cannot hide it though you may try. Externally, fortune and misfortune are perforce unable to affect you, favorable or adverse conditions are perforce unable to tempt your mind, and 100 sublime things are perforce unable to entice your thoughts. 40 The Master said, in ancient times, King Wu, 1169 to 1116 BC, always got up to bow whenever he heard of someone's good deed. His vassals said to him, "Isn't it exceeding the bounds of propriety to bow regardless of the person's high or low status?" The king replied, "I bow not because of his status, but because of his good deed. Good deeds have no high and low, noble and mean." His example can serve for all eternity as a model for appreciating good deeds. 41 The Master said, just as national defense needs to guard the three regions of land, sea, and air, so too does a practitioner need to achieve Mara defeated in three directions, namely, the three sensory conditions of favorable, adverse, and blankness. A favorable condition is one that can entice one's mind, an adverse condition is one that is offensive to one's mind, and a condition of blankness is one of mental laziness. Until you reach the status of Dharma strong and Mara defeated, you should concentrate your effort mainly on defending against them. After the stage of Mara defeated, you will be able to make use of all these conditions as if they were your own slaves. 42 The Master said, those who either practice too hard so as to hurt their bodies, or take such good care of their bodies so as to let go of their practice, are both people who do not know how to practice. Only by knowing at once to let go and to exert yourself in conformity with the level of your psychic and physical capabilities will you accomplish a practice that is malady-free. 43 The Master said, the wise person's method of practice involves assessing one's own capacities, initially avoiding certain sensory conditions unless one can readily bear them, and facing them after one has developed sufficient capacities. Pressing oneself to overcome a harsh condition without adequate preparations will just torment one's mind and body to no effect. 44 The Master said, if a patient's pulse is too rapid, you prescribe medicine to slow it down, and if it is too weak, you prescribe medicine to strengthen it. The blood flow is thus regulated and the physical body rendered free of maladies. In the same way, if we are excessive or deficient in using our mind, or biased in any particular direction, then we must regulate it through the impartial and non-dependent middle way, in order to develop a disposition that is free of maladies. An overly good-hearted disposition may suffer from the malady of being unable to overcome even minor sensory conditions. An overly vivacious one may suffer from the malady of lacking substance and thus being arbitrary. An overly courteous one may suffer from the malady of not being nimble enough. If talent dominates a person, there may be the malady of being frivolous and scanty of virtue. Furthermore, if one's thoughts are always too lofty, one may suffer from the malady of arrogance. If one's mind is overly humble, one may suffer from the malady of lacking the courage to advance. A person who is too drawn to grandiose ideas may suffer from the malady of neglecting the prosaic details. A person who is too detail-oriented may suffer from the malady of being unable to grasp the gist and the principles. An overly ardent person may suffer from the malady of easily resenting those who do better. A commonplace person without special aspirations may suffer from the malady of insufficient ardor. An overly solemn person may suffer from the malady of having little gentleness. An overly docile person may suffer from the malady of having little dignity. If one's disposition is overly upright, one may suffer from the malady of people not wanting to follow him. If one is pointlessly too congenial, one may suffer from the malady of being unable to distinguish between pure and soiled. An overly forceful person may suffer from the malady of cruelty. An overly gentle person may suffer from the malady of indecision. Hence, each of us must recognize well our own dispositions, so that if we notice maladies that involve bias in any one direction, we will make every effort to regulate them. Also, in practice, we must avoid any partiality toward just a part of the process and, in enterprises, any partiality toward just one aspect. Then, we will not suffer from the malady of neglecting enterprises during our practice or neglecting practice during our enterprises. People who continue their practice in this way will gradually achieve the well-rounded way, thus they will become highly useful people, their dispositions will be faultless and their characters will become more and more perfect. 45 The Master said, an ancient Sun Master said that the even and constant mind is the way. Even, Pyong, means that there is no differentiation between high and low status or between things and oneself. Constant, Sang, means annihilation of the gap between past and present and the transition between being and non-being. This refers to none other than our own self-nature, and our self-nature is none other than the great way of the universe. Hence, if you can clearly comprehend just this truth of the even and the constant, you will be called one who has seen one's nature and one who has mastered the way. However, in one's use of the mind, even if one has not yet fully awakened to this truth, one can put into practice this even and constant mind according to the situation. Therefore, we must simultaneously inquire into this even and constant truth and apply well this even and constant mind. 46 The Master continued, let me offer some examples in explanation of the operation of the even and constant mind. 1. In whatever matter, standing by the position one has taken if it is the right one and always maintaining consistent faith and loyalty signifies the even and constant mind. With conviction that transcends all circumstances, neither acceptance nor rejection can bring increase or decrease in one's mind, nor can ignominy or glory alter or budge it. Thus, once a resolution has been made, one can break through myriads of difficult situations, and even when one finally faces the gate of birth and death, one remains calm and composed, without the slightest hint of trepidation or importunity. This is the even and constant mind as made manifest in faith and loyalty. 2. Once we have formed mutually beneficent relationships with people, the spirit of interactions that is always consummate and unalloyed signifies the even and constant mind. One's spirit transcends various factions and does not become entangled in aversion or attachment, so that whenever a situation arises, one pursues only fairness. When granting beneficence, one pursues only no thought, without an intent to render benefits here and bring harm there, or a thought of liking someone at one time and disliking that person at another, and, even if the beneficiary should become ungrateful, one's mind does not change at all from the time of rendering beneficence. This is the even and constant mind as made manifest in interactions. 3. As we are living in this world and facing circumstances of wealth or poverty, having emotional responses that are always simple and forthright signifies the even and constant mind. One's demeanor remains always equanimous, so that one is neither ignoble in poverty nor conceited in wealth. Even if one wears fancy clothes and eats gourmet food, one does not display arrogance externally, nor feel ashamed internally even if one wears humble clothes and eats coarse food. This is the even and constant mind as made manifest in wealth and poverty. 4. When we come into this world and encounter situations that are either safe or dangerous, maintaining an unchanging spirit signifies the even and constant mind. Even when one is safe, one should never let go of a suitable measure of caution. Even when in danger, one should never transgress standards and proprieties. Thus, a spirit that is immovable and composed whether at leisure or in the midst of disturbances is the even and constant mind as made manifest in safety and danger. 47. The Master continued, if we reiterate the gist of this, never letting go of the one mind regardless of the place or situation becomes motive force for the operation of the even and constant mind. The practitioner who awakens to this truth of the even and constant will be able to achieve the sublime dharma of liberation from birth and death, sufferings and pleasures. When putting into operation the even and constant mind, one will be able to make manifest the conduct of the sages and saints. Hence, how can the saying that the even and constant mind is the way not be an appropriate dharma teaching? 48. The Master said, do not try to bind your mind too hastily, rather, practice deliberately, while practicing without interruptions. Alternating between grasping the mind, chipsim, observing the mind, quansim, and no mind, musim, practice mainly grasping the mind in the beginning, observing the mind as you become a bit more proficient, and no mind when farther along. Finally, you will arrive at the able mind, nungsim. 49. The Master said, in anything, if there is an attractive force inside, energies outside will respond. Drinking guests gather at a tavern because of the attractive force of liquor. People gather around a virtuous person because of the attractive force of virtue. If a practitioner cultivates well the formless mind practice, then the formless power of the mind is aroused, enabling one to attract and apply the great energy of the boundless universe. This is what is referred as the great authority of the triple world. 50. The Master said, true freedom comes from complete liberation. The ultimate principle of freedom is based on the truth of the universe and the self-nature. 51. The Master said, up until the status of Dharma strong and Mara defeated, one should practice by arousing great zeal regarding the question, who is the Buddha and who am I? From the status of Dharma strong and Mara defeated onward, one should practice to extinguish signs and stop putting on airs by contemplating the truth that sentient beings and Buddhas are originally one. Then one's practice will continually advance. 52. The Master said, cultivate absorption, but make it an absorption that is unconstrained by action or rest. Cultivate wisdom, but make it a wisdom that is unattached to wisdom or folly. Observe the precepts, but do so without being shackled by what is wholesome or unwholesome. 53. The Master said, an ancient saying goes, the mind should be as deep as the deep blue sea, the mouth should be as heavy as Mount Kunlun. Hence, in using your mind, let your mind be so deep that it is unfathomable like the deep ocean. Guard your mouth by keeping it as heavy as Mount Kunlun. As a person grows in greatness within himself, the extent of that person's mind becomes unfathomable. A small vessel is soon filled and overflows, but a large vessel always has room for more. 54. The Master said, just as the vast ocean receives water from thousands of valley streams without showing any trace of them, so too a great person leaves no traces of either practice or public service. Although one fully comprehends all human affairs and universal principles, one shows no trace of having done so, and, though one delivers myriads of sentient beings everywhere, one shows no trace of doing so.